Warren Williamson, Oregon Duck football news on the campus of the University of Oregon in front of their beautiful football complex with Gary Horowitz from the Statesman Journal. We've both been following the Ducks through fall camp. It's been a long fall camp. I guess let's start with, we haven't been able to watch the team, but what have you noticed in the many interviews you've done since fall camp has begun about this new squad?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot like the old squad that we saw at the end of last year, the team that finished 12-1 and came within, they were ranked number 2 in the nation, and they would have been in the national championship game, but they lost to Stanford. So most of the pieces are back, as we see, especially with Mariota. He looks bigger and stronger, more confident, more of a leader. I'm interested to see how Armstead on the defensive line, he looks huge, stronger, more physical, started on the defensive line. And of course, Mark Helfrich, he's been here a while, but he's now the head coach. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be able to carry on that 46-7 record that Chip Kelly had? He's got the pieces. It just remains to be seen what kind of game coach is he going to be, and we're about to find out, and that's exciting.
I think most of the pundits across the country, including Game Day from ESPN, have talked about they just don't know about this number 3 ranked team, mostly because of the coaching change. Chip has gone on to the NFL. You mentioned it. How will Coach Helfrich respond being in charge? What are your thoughts about Coach Helfrich and how he'll respond?
Well, sometimes out here he sounds like Chip. When he's asked about Thomas Tyner, we saw him in a boot during camp, and he goes, he's a running back at the University of Oregon, deadpan, straight face. So, and the fact that he has already been here, 4 years as offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly was offensive coordinator for what I think it was 3 years before he ascended to the top spot. So they have that continuity. He's following in Chip's footsteps. I think he's ready. Chip was never a head coach at any level before he got here, and look what he did. So, and Mark also has most of the same assistant coaches around him. So I have every reason to believe he's going to do a good job, but we'll see.
You know, Gary, I think what's more intriguing to me, because I think Coach Helfrich will be fine, what's more intriguing to me is Scott Frost moving from wide receiver coach to offensive coordinator to now calling the plays up on the booth. I'm just wondering how much he will actually call the plays from up above.
Well, he's going to send them down, I think, is the story. And Coach Helfrich has been saying Scott Frost will call the plays. Of course, it goes through Mark. It's going to have it in his headset. Maybe there's going to be disagreement. And you're right, that will be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think Scott, with his background, he was the quarterback, of course, at Nebraska. So he's a guy who's used to making calls on the run. I'm sure he was able to audibilize back in the day. And Nebraska had some pretty good teams. I never liked their uniforms, but good teams anyway. So there's reason to believe he's ready for that job as well.
You and I were joking earlier that you asked me where Nicholls State was. All I know is that they're in Louisiana, Thibodaux, Louisiana. Have no idea where that is. Do you think there is a benefit for a team like Oregon to play a cupcake, honestly an inferior opponent in the first game?
I don't really see much benefit at all. They're not going to be tested. It's all about the money for Nicholls State, $450,000, which is a lot of money. It will help their athletic department. I mean, the one asset it will give Oregon is they're going to have a chance to look at a lot of players. They're going to go down that depth chart. I would be surprised if Mariota plays more than a series or two into the second quarter. It'll be that much of a blowout. But maybe we see Thomas Tyner, some of the true freshmen who get to play, and some of the backups who are now starters. They're going to maybe get a little bit more time, be out there for the first time. So in that sense, it's going to help the experience level as long as no one gets hurt. But that's going to be a risk no matter who you play.
I think we all know what Marcus Mariota can do as a second-year starter. I think an intriguing storyline is, what will Jeff Locke and Jake Rodriguez do when they come in? How well will they play? Because Mariota is one play away from an injury, and I don't think we know a lot about the two backups.
Other than they look pretty good in the spring game. They both look like they can run that read option. I think Rodriguez is a little better thrower, Locke a little bit maybe more of a pure passer. But we hadn't seen Mariota before either until that spring game last year, and he really came on. And Oregon recruits good quarterbacks. Look at the line they've had. Dennis Dixon and Thomas and on to Mariota. And I think Brian Bennett would have been a good quarterback, but Marcus was better. So you're right. We don't know about them until they get in a game, but they're going to play a lot some in the early going, I believe.
I think, Gary, one of the most exciting parts of this Oregon squad is their defense. We know what we're going to get from Nick Aliotti. Again, he's put together a pretty good defensive squad. We know the secondary is extremely talented, and now they are one year older. The defensive line, led by Armstead, he's 1 year older, and I think he'll be a beast this year as well. What are your thoughts about this year's defensive squad?
I think the really only question is at inside linebacker. I think Hardrick and Malone are going to start, but they've got a lot of guys there who are going to get playing time. And Coach Aliotti always plays 24, 25 guys, and they rotate, and they're always fresh. I think this could be one of the best defenses they've had in many years. I love what they've got up front with Armstead and Buckner, who played as a true freshman. Those guys are like, what, 6'7", 6'8", close to 300 pounds. Those are monsters on that line. Tony Washington replaces Deion Jordan. Nobody can replace a Deion Jordan, but from all indications, he's a good player. He played a lot last year. And I think led by Efo in the secondary, and they've got Jackson back there. They've got a lot of good players. They're all returning. Heck, Eric Dargan, who came in last year late in the season because of injuries, he led the team in interceptions. So I think it could be one of the best secondaries in the country. They're fast, and they're strong everywhere except kicker.
You know, and let's not forget that Avery Patterson is listed number 1 of the depth chart at free safety, and I think none of us really knew how healthy that knee was coming into fall camp. We can't watch, but it's good to know and see that he's on the depth chart as the number 1 free safety, so we know he's back 100%.
He said he was 100% back in the first day of media day, and he must be, or he wouldn't be in the starting lineup. And I just mentioned a minute ago, I think the only area of concern really is at kicker.
Yeah.
Where it's going to be Maldonado and Wogan, I believe Matt Wogan, who's they're competing for the starting job. Wogan's got the bigger leg. From what I understand, Maldonado's been a little bit more accurate in practice, but he sure has missed some big kicks the last couple of years. The USC game 2 years ago, Stanford 2 kicks last year, and had they won those games, they might have played for the national championship again in those years. So there's a big question mark there at kicker.
Well, it does set up to be an exciting year as we get into week number 1 against Nicholls State here at Autzen Stadium. Gary will be with us throughout the season. We'll talk about Oregon football. You can follow Gary at the Statesman Journal. I believe you have a blog and
at G Horowitz on Twitter.
There you
can
go.
Find me there.
Gary, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
We'll
Good
see
to
you.
be with you. Thank you.
Gary Horowitz from the Statesman Journal. I'm Warren Williamson. More to come this season on Oregon Duck Football News.